What's up, everyone? Mark from Enchantment of Eternity here with another Patreon-only video where I'm continuing my coverage of Star Trek The Animated Series, and here we are. Finally got to Season 2, the very short 6-episode long Season 2, so we're nearing the end. And I'm here to cover the first 2 episodes of Season 2 of Star Trek The Animated Series. So let me start with the first episode of Season 2, The Pirates of Orion, or as they're referred to in this episode, The Pirates of Orion. Now let me get this out of the way because this is really irritating. Throughout the episode, they all constantly refer to themselves as Orions, or other people refer to them as Orions. Like they say, we Orions, and Kirk is like, it's the Orions. It's fucking Orions, for fuck's sake. Not only was this established before this episode was made in Journey to Babel, but also is, named after an actual star constellation, which is pronounced Orion, and every other fucking, and every other appearance of this race, they're called Orion. So that was very annoying. But other than that, I was actually surprised at how good this episode is. In fact, I think this episode is up there with Yesteryear as one of the best episodes of the show. I was surprised that this episode was so good. I don't remember it being this good. Now, part of the reason might be because I'm sort of, when I do these rewatches and for these reviews, I pay a lot more attention and try to analyze it a bit more, so I sometimes notice different things I haven't noticed before, and particularly with the animated series, which I've only seen these episodes probably once, maybe twice before. So I think, my instinct is to say this episode is amazing, but I think it's amazing in the context of the animated series. When compared to, other episodes from other series, then it's kind of more averagely good. Or it's a really good episode, but not, amazing or anything. Now, it did really feel unlike most episodes of the animated series, this felt like an actual episode of the original series. And there's many episodes that try to do that but don't really succeed, but this one actually, I think you could translate it to live action and put it in the original series and it would feel in place. It wouldn't feel out of place there. I thought it had a really well constructed plot that was really good in getting you invested and engaged and keeping the suspense level. This didn't really feel that much, other than some dialogue here and there, it didn't feel that much like a kid's show. It felt like an actual Star Trek episode. Although, they had clunky dialogue because they had to dumb it down a bit so, kids could understand it. But other than that, it was a really well constructed episode. So it starts with Spock getting this disease, and he's getting, he's really sick, and they have to have this medicine in order to cure him, and they not sure they can get to the starbase or whatever in time, so they have another Starfleet ship, a cargo vessel, meet them halfway, so they pick it up from the starbase, and they're going to meet halfway. And then we get some scenes on this, cargo vessel or transport ship, however you want to call it. And that was really cool. I don't think that's something the original series really did much. We have seen later Star Trek shows like TNG, Voyager, and DS9 do this, where they'd have another ship and they'd show us exclusively what's going on in that ship. But I don't really remember that being done all that much on the original series. So I thought that was really cool. I really appreciated that, and how we got several scenes with them. And actually the voice acting was kind of good, because I've really criticized the voice acting before with a lot of because they get the exact same, and they don't have guest actors come in. The only exception is like the producer who runs the animation series studio, which I assume he was the one doing the voice of the captain in the transport ship, because I didn't recognize that voice at all. But the others was George Takei and someone else I can't remember. But I actually thought they did a good job, and it was good seeing these. They felt like an actual crew, and you felt worried for them when the when the Orions were like chasing them and stuff, and that of course they were transport, they weren't able to defend themselves. So I thought it was really great in ramping the tension, and how like Spock was on death's door basically, and McCoy had to say like, look, you have to half your duties, and Spock's like, no, I'm fine, I can do my duties, and Kirk's just like, no, that's an order, and McCoy said it's a doctor's order, you have to, and he's like, fine, whatever. And these interactions felt really true to the characters, which I think is not the case in many of these animated series episodes. A lot of these episodes, they just feel like they're espousing exposition, and you don't really get, or the character interactions are really clunky and cartoonish. You don't really get these character interactions like here, where it feels like that same exact dynamic you would get in an original series episode. So anyway, of course, the Orions... Sorry, I'm going to keep doing that. The Orions attack the transport ship and steal the cargo, and the Enterprise meets up with them, and the crew is all unconscious or near death's door, and so they beam over to help them and find that all their cargo is missing or gone. Now, I like this because this episode, it could have very easily just cut out all the stuff with the scenes with the transport vessel, and just shown straight to this scene where Kirk and crew beam aboard and find the crew unconscious, which I feel is what the original series would have done, and that might be due to budget reasons. But I feel like that's how the original series would have handled it, and I think I'm very glad that they didn't do it that way. I think it adds a lot to actually get those scenes with the transport vessel, rather than immediately showing, oh, they're injured or they've been attacked, because now we have background, we care about these characters or situations more, and we understand more that the that the Ryans were responsible. See, I'm doing this so you can appreciate how fucking annoying it was watching this episode, in case you haven't watched it recently. But anyway, the Orions, it appreciates how of their backstory and how they attacked the ship, which makes them seem more of a realistic threat, and you're more invested in Kirk going after them. So, and then of course Kirk, manages to track him down because he's so desperate to get the medicine for Spock, and they track him down and to this really explosive asteroid field, which I think is a really interesting concept. This is great concepts that a lot of episodes of the original series didn't do. Again, maybe for budget reasons. So the Enterprise tracks them down, but they're in this very volatile area, and they're trying to threaten the Orions, who try to shoot at the Enterprise, but their weapons are insignificant to them, and so the Orions, Kirk, I'll stop. But Kirk agrees, to make a deal with the Orions to say, look, you can keep your stolen dilithium. I don't give a shit. I just want the medicine to save my first officer's life. And and he even offers them more dilithiums on top of that they already stolen. And I think he, in his desperation, he sweetened the deal too much. He made the deal too good, which I can understand from Kirk's perspective, because he's so desperate. He doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to save Spock's life. But from the Orion's perspective, I'm so tempted. I won't say. But from the Orion's perspective, they see it as too good to be true. That they must be lying. He must be playing at something. And so they deem that they're keeping their neutrality and keeping the fact that they're actually pirating secret because they don't want to lose their deals, or they want to have the relations between the Federation become hostile. So they decide it's more important to destroy both their own ship, in the process destroying the Enterprise. Therefore, the neutrality is never threatened. Now, this is great storytelling, and it's also very consistent with the one appearance we got previous of the Orions in Journey to Babel, because we didn't get much of them. We didn't actually see what they looked like. It's funny, this is the first time we actually see what they looked like, and other than the Orion slave girl, sure, but we won't really get the full-on like Orion stuff until like Enterprise times. So they decide to blow up themselves in order to blow up the Enterprise, and this is completely consistent with how they've been portrayed in Journey to Babel, even though it was a short appearance, because they were also like suicidal. The one agent who was disguised as an Andorian killed himself rather than be discovered, and the Orion ship, if I remember correctly, did actually self-destruct rather than be discovered, because they don't want the Federation to have concrete proof that they're pirating, because again it hurts relations. So this is all very in keeping, and you can really tell that this episode was written by some of the same writers who worked on the original series. Even though that is true of a lot of episodes of the animated series, it doesn't really come across as strong as it does here in this episode. And so, the Orion captain beams down to one of the asteroids with Kirk, and he plans to blow it up using some dilithium crystals. And you get this is where you get some of the clunky dialogue. It's like, I would rather commit suicide. Like, again, it's dumbed down a little bit, so that's fine. This is a cartoon. But then, like, it does seem kind of Dr. Evil-ish that he, I get, like, before he beamed down, he told his first officer, I want Kirk to know that they're about to die. I want them to, to see the look on his face and to know that I'm totally going to fuck him up. Which I can understand. That makes sense. But once he does beam down, it does seem kind of Dr. Evil-ish montaging, ha ha, I'm about to kill you. And that gives time Kirk to stop him. Like, if he didn't montage, then maybe Kirk wouldn't have been able to attack him. It seems like maybe he could have just done the thing, really quick, or maybe stood a bit further away to make it less likely for Kirk to actually, stop him. So the way Kirk was able to stop him was a bit too easy, though. But it was really interesting that Kirk captured him and stopped him from killing himself. And being like, and so the Orion ship was going to follow procedures and destroy themselves, which would not destroy the Enterprise. And Kirk pointed out that doing so is pointless because they have the captain, and they stopped him from killing himself. So even if the ship destroys himself, they already have proof that they've been pirating. So they're fucked either way. So the captain talks them down from destroying themselves. And this was like really a conclusion. This is like the conclusion of Journey to Babel, because Journey to Babel is all about the Orions doing illegal pirating ship, and they were willing to kill themselves to keep their neutrality, to keep any like hard evidence that they've been pirating secret. And this is the conclusion where Kirk actually manages to expose them, and actually finally manages to get them, because in Journey to Babel they got away with it, where here Kirk gets them, he traps them, and I love it because it's very ironic, because he didn't even want to. He just wanted to save Spock's life. He was willing to let them go. He was willing to even give them more dilithium crystals, but their own sort of arrogance, and we have to keep our neutrality, is more important than everything, so let's just kill us and kill themselves. That caused their downfall. The own fault that they weren't willing to just take Kirk at his word, which they should have, was their own downfall, and it resulted in what they feared most happened, where if they just took Kirk at his word and just gave him the medicine, everything would have been fine. I love that. I think that's really great. I think this is a really good episode. Now, does have flaws other than what I just mentioned about the clunky dialogue or whatever, and how easy it was for Kirk to capture him. Another thing that really bugged me is that McCoy was being really racist towards Spock. Now, I know there's been other videos and arguments could be made that McCoy was always racist towards Spock in all of Star Trek, particularly the original series. Which, yeah, one can make that argument, but I think it was decidedly much worse in this episode than I've ever seen it before, because he keeps talking about blaming Spock's green blood for him being sick. And at the end of the episode, he gets in an argument with Spock. It's supposed to be one of those cutesy, codas at the end of the episode where they go, ha ha ha, and they joke around, which I always hated. But to be fair, that was also in the original series. It's not just in the animated series. But this one in particular was terrible because it was just McCoy being incredibly racist, because his argument with Spock was that the reason why he almost died was because of his green blood. So basically he's saying, it's your fault for not being human. You deserve to die because you're not human. What? That is one of the racist, xenophobic statements. Like, this goes far beyond anything McCoy has done. Now, you could argue he was saying this in jest, but I don't think so. Saying my race is superior to your race in jest is still not okay. I don't know why I'm talking like William Shatner when I'm saying this, but it's true. So that did bother me a lot. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good episode. So my rating for the Pirates of Orion. Sorry, I had to one last time. My rating for the Pirates of Orion out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. I'm very tempted to give this episode a 9, but I think that temptation only comes from the fact that this is the animated series, and I wasn't expecting an animated series episode to be that good. When I compare it to, like, there were other original series episodes or episodes of Next Generation, 9 might be laying it on a bit too thick, but 8 definitely. This felt like it could have been fit right into the original series. So, next let me get into the second episode of the second season, Bim, and this is kind of more of the stereotypical dribble that I'd come to expect from the animated series. This felt more like a cartoon, but it wasn't just like, you could say, oh, it is a cartoon, Mark. Yes, I know, but that last episode was also a cartoon that was really good. But it's not just that it's a cartoon. It's that it's, even from the perspective of it being an animated show for kids, it was still badly written. It was a bit all over the place. Like, the plot didn't really make sense. It seemed like they were just throwing in like cool looking things just to do it. So it was about this ambassador who's acting really weird. Actually, I do like the way he was portrayed, like the way he talks. He's like, this one, and instead of it, like, he'd always refer to himself in the third person as this one whenever saying something, which is, I kind of like those interesting character quirks when it comes to aliens, weird looking aliens. But I don't know. The whole episode didn't seem to make sense, because then they were going to a primitive planet that was beyond. It was like cave people, basically. It was beyond pre-warp. So what the hell they're doing there? And I didn't really get this, and Kirk was like, oh, we're here to evaluate this planet to see if they're ready for Federation contact. Obviously not, because they're obviously primitive and pre-warp, beyond pre-warp. They're even pre-industrial age. They're pre-anything. They're still living in huts. So what? Why do they need to go down to the planet to figure this out? In fact, in the episode, they refer to the indigenous populations as aboriginals. So they know full well that they shouldn't, that the prime directive applies and they shouldn't be anywhere near them. Now, I will grant you this is before, like, Who Watches the Watchers, Next Generation, where I just watched that episode for Next Generation, so it's fresh in my mind. But it's before the times of where they established that anthropologists beamed down with a duck blind. In fact, we don't know if this practice was actually used during the original series time. We have only seen it used during Next Generation time, but you could assume that or something similar would be utilized with cultures this primitive, that they would want to keep their distance and totally satisfy the Prime Directive. In fact, I would guess that if they didn't have the technology to do the complete holographic cover duck blind thing they do in Next Generation, that they wouldn't go down to a planet at all and just observe them from space. So why the hell is Kirk beaming down with 5 people and this alien ambassador who's obviously like out of control and just doing his own thing to this planet that they shouldn't be interfering with their culture? And the character of Bim, who like this the sort of the neat little thing trick is that he can disassemble his own body, like his abdomen can leave his legs and they walk around and the legs have like arms, which is a cool little trick, but it's just there to look cool. It doesn't actually add anything to the story, and the way it's executed is really cheesy, and the dude's head like disassembles from the rest of his body. It's like, ooh, look at how cool this is. But the character himself, like, the way he behaves, it doesn't make sense. He's like evaluating Kirk and saying, "Oh, you're doing, and he's like being reckless." And Kirk tries to point this out to him. He's just like, "No, I'm evaluating you. You're a terrible captain." And to be fair, I don't completely disagree with his assessment. I think Kirk is being a terrible captain in this episode. Also, like, Bim steals the phasers and tricorders and communicators from Kirk and Spock and replaces them with fakes. But he doesn't. There's like other people there in the landing party as well, like Scotty, and he doesn't steal any of their shit. So how does he know that Kirk and Spock will be the only people going after them? I guess he's seen the show before and knows that Kirk and Spock are the main characters and they always go on all the missions. Nobody cares about Scotty and the red shirts. That's stupid. Although getting to the positive, I did like that they actually put Uhura in command of the Enterprise, and this isn't the first time this happened on the animated series, but it never happened in the actual original series, because they even pointed this out. Like Michelle Nichols made a point out of pointing this out, that in the original series, when all the main characters beamed down to the planet, they put someone of a lower rank in charge, a man, rather than her. So I like that they actually put her in charge of the Enterprise this time. And she actually gave Scotty orders, even though he outranked her. But technically, she wasn't giving him orders. She was just reminding him of the captain's orders. That's kind of different. But plus, she was in command of the Enterprise, so she could do that. So I like that. I thought that was a nice touch. And something we didn't get on the original series. But as for the plot of, like, they had this weird alien presence that was protecting the primitive people. And to think about it, this same exact thing is kind of used in the Next Generation episode Justice over a decade later. So I wonder if they got the idea from this episode. But it's very similar to stuff they've done in the original series before, having this huge alien, I guess. Like, was it the Paradise Syndrome was kind of similar to that, where there's a huge alien that protects primitive cultures for some reason. But it was so cliche and stereotypical. It was just out of nowhere, and it was very obviously Michelle Nichols doing the voice for it. Like, she didn't even try it, although she was really soft. But it felt like a horror was talking to them, really. And it's yeah, it was really cheesy and just so cliche and just thrown in out of nowhere. But so when Kirk tries to shoot the native people, the powerful entity stops him and makes their phasers disappear. And she gives Kirk and Spock permission to, it's like, okay, you can use your communication, because she was blocking all use of their technologies. It's like, you can use your communicators if you leave. So Kirk instead of leaving, he beams down an armed security team in order to find Bim, which is fair, they wanted to find Bim. And the armed security team proceed to shoot all of the native people. Now, why the hell did this alien not interfere with them? They made Kirk and Spock's phasers disappear. Why didn't they do the same for the armed security men? And she should have been irate that she gave them permission to use their technology, and they used it to beam more people down and attack her quote-unquote children. And I know they try to excuse this because once they find Bim, the alien entity is pissed at them, and he's just like, "Look, we need to find our missing crew member. So he doesn't interfere with your children. We need to find him, take him away, so we can all leave." And she's like, "Okay." And then not only okay, to do it over the top. It was like, "Oh, you are so nice. I appreciate you, and you're so great." And go on and spread love and fear. It's just like, this episode was a mess. It was entirely poorly written. It was just a bunch of cliches thrown together or cool-looking things that didn't really add much to anything. So this is another example of just a bad animated series episode. Anyway, my rating for Bim out of 10 is a 3. Very poor. So that is it for my review of the first 2 episodes of Season 2 of Star Trek The Animated Series. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. I was very much appreciated, particularly in these times, which are pretty hard for everyone. So thank you so much. Thank you for continuing to support the channel, and I shall be back with more coverage of the animated series. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.